Yes, okay. Okay, it's recording now. Okay, our next report, Nlb2 Reports, John Morris will do our membership report and our WECO report.
Thank you, Sherry. I tilt this a little bit so you don't just see at the top of my head. For the membership report, we started out in January with 1,234 members. There were 50 new members in January. That brings our total membership to 1,284, which includes 16 renewals at the end of the month. There are still 493 members who have not renewed. Please see me to check if you are one of them. Members may renew, or any guests today or others who know that you know want to join can do so by completing the membership agreement, which is available after the meeting and on the On the Go Travel Club page of the Sons of the Hilton Head website under clubs and groups. There is both the printable and online version on the website page. As for the WECO Special Interest Group provides a list of things to do in the local area. The list is for your information to go on your own. These are not group travel. The meeting and Facebook page provide an opportunity to find out who else is going somewhere so you can go together. The majority of events are $35 or less, and many of them are free. The WECO list is emailed to club members and posted on the club's webpage in the middle of the month. Summarized information is also posted later on the Community Association bulletin boards. Printed copies of the WECO list, the frequent flyer, membership agreement, and other things that are available in the box by the door at 23 Paget Drive. That's like just across from Town Hall, across Delaware Boulevard. The list in the frequent flyer, if you look at it now, you'll see it's much different than it has been in the past. It has a totally new format. Events are no longer listed by date in each category, along with the location, time, and price. Instead, only event name and location are shown, grouped by type of activity. For example, classical groups might be concerts and opera. Check the full WECO list for all the details in the dated order. Information about the WECO Facebook page is still at the top of the page on the list. This is the place to look for any last-minute updates and to keep in touch with other members. If you want to be part of this group, contact Debbie Height. The January list still has many events remaining, so don't forget to check it. If you can't find your copy, it's posted on the club page of the Sons of Hilton Head website and available in the box at 23 Paget Drive. The March list, which also includes a few things for this month that were not available for this month's list, will be emailed to members next week. If you're ever looking for anything to do, the WECO list is the place to find it. Come to the May River Room in Pickney Hall on Wednesday, February 16th for the WECO meeting. See what events others are planning to attend starting at 9:30. The meeting itself starts at 10. I hope to see you there.
Thank you, Joan. So next we have our program. And let me just check with the Zoom people again and just make sure that you are hearing okay. And give me a thumbs up if you're hearing us okay here in the room. I saw one. Any, yes, okay. So I saw a couple, so I think we're good. So let me introduce today's speaker. America the Beautiful, searching for spacious skies and amber waves. Look no further than our National Parks Service. Diane Brooks moved to Sun City 3 years ago from Atlanta and retired at the end of 2020. For over 25 years, she traveled with her job in the food service industry and has been to all but 2 of our 50 states. She's also traveled to countries in Europe, China, Cambodia, Thailand, Iceland, and Ireland. In 2016, when the National Park Service had their centennial year, she became more interested in visiting some of the national parks. She did a fun road trip with friends to the Badlands, Mount Rushmore, Yellowstone, Devil's Tower, and Grand Teton parks. And now that she's retired, she's planning to visit more sites managed by the park system. Today, Diane will be sharing her photos and experiences from her visits to some of the National Park System sites within driving distance of Sun City, and provide information to help you plan your trips. So Diane, I will turn it over to you, and I'll let you get it set up for screen share.
Well, now I have to find screen share. It's gone.
Oh, it's gone. Okay.
Hang on, we've got a little technical difficulty.
Don't stop the video.
No.
Just go to screen share and then you can do a search, I think. Okay. Oh my goodness. Where's the, where? Okay. Can you minimize? No, that's the recording. You don't want to do. Can you minimize this? Do exit full screen. And now. Just let it open and now minimize it and then go back into share screen. Go up here to slideshow. And now you can do the presenter view.
There. It takes it a second.
Okay.
All right, I think we're good. All right, hopefully everybody that's on Zoom can see this appropriately. So anyway, I'm Diane Brooks and wanted to thank you for being here today. It's really fun to be able to share some of our travel experiences as we all have had. I'm not an expert on the park system. I'm really good at planning my own trips since I did it for 25 years, but really became excited. I've been to the Grand Canyon way back in, probably the late 90s, but was never really excited about the park system until my friends and I did our girls' road trip. And since then, I've been trying to plan more trips to visit the national parks and the Park Service. So as you can see here, I included some slides. So of course, the first one is very recognizable by all of us, which is Mount Rushmore in South Dakota. The second one is Moccasin Bend National District in Tennessee. It's one of the most unique sites in the national park system, spanning 12,000 years of continuous human habitation. During the siege and battles that took place in the area in the fall and winter of 1863, Union and artillery entrenched on the bend and periodically exchanged fire with Confederate batteries on Lookout Mountain. So you can see from the top there how it curves there on the river. And when you're up there and you look at it, it does look just like a moccasin. So that's why it's called Moccasin Bend.
Do you know that it's not showing on the screen?
It is, it's the second slide right there.
Sorry.
You scared me for a minute. I'm like, what did I touch? This peninsula was also used as part of the Union Army's main supply line known as the Cracker Line. So the last slide there, just a glimpse, is Fort Polaski in Savannah, not very far from us. And it was completed in 1847 and one of the forts that took 18 years to complete. So it was one of the sites of the first use of rifled artillery technology in military history. And the fort was abandoned at the turn of the century, in the 20th century, and there's lots of stories to share if you go there and visit. So the national park system, when you think of national parks, sometimes you only think of, well, just the parks, right? But it's more than just national parks, as you can see here. So it's a national park system that's managed by the service. So it includes 423 individual units in the United States. 63 of them are national parks. We did have a new one designated last year, the New River Gorge in West Virginia. It's the first time in a while that there's been a new national park named. There's 84 national monuments. You'll probably in your travels see more monuments, historical parks and sites and military parks, and some national seashores. So this is not everything because it doesn't add up to 423, but I didn't have enough room on the slide. But it'll give you an idea as to what's out there for you to see. The most popular for last year were the Great Smoky Mountains, which cover Tennessee and North Carolina. We're all pretty familiar with them. Yellowstone National Park, of course, in Wyoming, Zion National Park in Utah, Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado, the Grand Tetons in Wyoming, and of course, the Grand Canyon in Arizona. So if you want to plan your visit and you want to know, well, okay, I'm going to plan a trip over to Georgia in a month or two. Where do you start? So you want to go to the website that shows here, the nps.gov Find a Park Index. It's a very, very user-friendly website. You can just plug in which state you're going to and on the drop-down menu. And as you can see here on the picture, this is an example of what you'll see for South Carolina. So it shows you every national park or site or military park within South Carolina to help you plan your trip. So in the drop-down menu, it'll list all of the national parks and a little bit of information. So here is a national historical park, which is Fort Sumter and Fort Moultrie up in Charleston Harbor. So it'll show you a little bit of information about the park, see if that's something you're really interested in going to. And then you'll notice on the right-hand side, it'll highlight alerts and conditions, basic information, calendar, and maps. So if you click on those, it'll show you that if there's certain hours of operation, maybe basic information as far as whether the visitor center is open. I experienced a little bit of that last year where I went to one up in Charleston and the visitor center was closed, of course, from COVID. But it's such a great, very user-friendly site. So I would encourage you to take a look at that for planning purposes. So for today, when I was talking with Ed and our board, said, okay, you know, there's a lot of national parks, where do you start? So I decided to really focus on ones that are close by. So you could do it easily by car. So we're going to talk about South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida to give you an idea on your planning. So in South Carolina, these are what's under the national park system. So some of these you probably have heard of, the Charles Pickney in Mount Pleasant. So Charles Pickney was an author and signer of the US Constitution. So there is remnants of his coastal plantation that's there to visit. Congaree, which is in Hopkins, it's very popular. And March to May is one of the best times to visit there. It's the largest intact expanse of old growth bottomland hardwood forest remaining in the southeastern United States. I have not been there yet, but I'm going to try to go this year. It's interesting that, you know, we do have some pretty heavy rains. When they have heavy rains there, close to 90% of the park is completely submerged. So you don't want to go at that time. They do have elevated walking paths. There's 25 miles of hiking and a little over 2 miles of just boardwalks that you can walk on. So you can, you know, plan and walk as much as you want or as least amount. There are rangers and volunteer guided programs that can help guide you through the park. And the next one I thought was interesting, again, because I've not been to these in South Carolina, is Cowpens. And I saw that and I thought, what is it? It's a national battlefield. So in January 19th of 1781, it was a Revolutionary War site, which was pasture land and commemorates where Daniel Morgan and his army turned the flanks of the British Army. This, and for any military buffs in here, this is a classic military tactic known as double envelopement, which was one of only a few in history. So I thought that was kind of an interesting tidbit. And then of course, Fort Sumter and Fort Moultrie, both are at the entrance of Charleston Harbor. Inside the Palmetto Log Fort, later named Fort Moultrie, it defeated the Royal Navy in 1776. As Charleston blazed a path towards secession to reserve slavery, construction on a new fort, which was Fort Sumter, proceeded. The Confederacy fired on the U.S. garrison of Fort Sumter on April 1861, which opened the Civil War. So really a lot of history there. And in 96, again, this was something I'd not heard of. It is a National Historic Site. And settlers struggled against the harsh backcountry to survive. The Cherokee Indians hunted and fought to keep their land here. 2 town and trading posts were formed, and then they were abandoned. 2 Revolutionary War battles claimed over 100 lives. And then the Reconstruction Era National Park. So this is an historic period from 1861 to 1900, in which the U.S. grappled with the question of how to integrate millions of newly freed African Americans into social, political, and economic and labor systems. So it was a significant transformation during this time. The people, places, and events in Beaufort reflect on the most important issues of the time period of that day. So just a couple of pictures I found online that I thought were interesting. So this is one of the giant bald cypress trees in Congaree National Park, and some men there on the right that were in the initial stages of when they were planning the park. Pretty big trees. Also too, in Congaree, they have some invasive species, which the one on the left may be recognizable to many, which is Chinese wisteria. I planted that one time in my yard in Atlanta, and that was not the right plant to plant. But they also have what they call red imported fire ants. I'm not sure about that. To me, they're just fire ants. In a Japanese climbing fern, which is also an invasive species there. They, of course, have butterflies and moths and dragonflies. And then the picture on the right, you can see that is a picture during the flooding that occurs during the park. So it's an aerial view of Fort Sumter and then the ruins of Fort Sumter's officer quarters. I'm hoping that it's open now. It was not open when the visitor center was not open. But just to go up there in a nice day and walk around Fort Sumter, it's just a lovely water view and a nice walking path there. It's not really very long, so it's easy to navigate around. So there's another picture of Fort Moultrie during World War II. It was a harbor control post there. So Georgia, where I'm from, and I haven't even been to all of these because I was still working. But I found some of these very interesting, and one of them was Andersonville. Has anybody in here heard of Andersonville? Yeah, so I had always heard of it, didn't really know a lot about it until I started doing some research, but nearly 13,000 men died on these grounds. And it's a site that became infamous even before the Civil War ended. The burial grounds there became Andersonville National Cemetery, where veterans continue to be buried today. That part I did not know. Tens of thousands suffered captivity so others could be free. Also home to the National Prisoner of War Museum and serves as a memorial to all American prisoners of war. So the next one, and I'm kind of skipping over because I don't have time to talk about every one of these parks, but some of them I thought would be more interesting to everybody. Chickamauga and Chattanooga. I don't know if anybody's been there or not. So I had relatives in Chattanooga, so I went there a lot as a kid. And I think Georgia and Tennessee still battle over who was going to claim the rights to Chattanooga because it's so close. But it was in 1863, the Union and Confederate forces fought for the control of Chattanooga. and it was known as the Gateway of the South because of the river there. Confederates were victorious at nearby Chickamauga in September. However, renewed fighting in Chattanooga that November provided Union troops victory and control of the city. President Lincoln believed that taking Chattanooga was as important as taking Richmond. Why? It's because on the banks of the Tennessee River, there are 4 major railroads converged there. So when the Union captured Chattanooga, it crippled the Confederate supply lines. So pretty strategic, and it's a lovely city. If you haven't been to Chattanooga, I actually went last year again. It's one of the cleanest cities you can go to, and it's just beautiful downtown. So a lot of history there and really a lot of fun. Cumberland Island in St. Mary's is a national seashore. It covers 9,800 acres, and its natives, missionaries, enslaved African Americans, and wealthy industrialists all walked here. So this is included on one of our trips that's in our newsletter on April 26 and 28. Scotty is leading a tour group to Cumberland Island and offering all 4 Georgia islands. So it's Jekyll, St. Simons, and Sapelo Islands, along with Cumberland. So if you're interested, make sure you contact Scotty or, look at the newsletter and see that particular trip. Fort Polaski in Savannah, it's very close to us as well. It was built in the first half of the 19th century to protect the port of Savannah. Makes sense. It's heaviest used during the American Civil War. It was seized by the state of Georgia, transferred to the Confederate States of America. The U.S. once again took possession after a 50-day siege and 2 days of artillery battle. The fort changed roles a number of times and was home to soldiers from both sides. And then the last one I thought is interesting too, because the company I worked for was based in Oklahoma. So I began to learn a little bit about the Trail of Tears and what happened with the Indians. But in 1830, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act, requiring various Indian tribes in the Southeast to give up their lands in exchange for federal territory west of the Mississippi. This is present-day Oklahoma. In 1838, the removal began and U.S. Army troops moved 16,000 Cherokee Indian people from their homelands in Tennessee, Alabama, North Carolina, and Georgia. The impact resulted in more than 1,000 Cherokees dying during the trip westward. So the National Park Service website provides a lot of places to go along this trail, if that might be something you could start on and visit. So what I thought I'd do is just give you an idea on maybe a couple of trips you could take. So if you want to take a day trip or maybe one overnight trip or something 2 to 4. So the first, anything with the red dot, shows the Emoji Mounds in Macon, which is about 3 hours from here. It's just up Interstate 16. It's a pretty easy drive, but boring because there's nothing on 16. But the mounds, the Emoji Mounds is on this side of Macon. So it's real easy to get to. Has anybody ever been? Oh, great. Been there about 3 times now. It's a great, really, again, short walk park, but if on a nice day, it's really very pleasant. So I'm an Allman Brothers fan, so I had to put that on here. Because if you go to Macon and you go to the Mounds, you can drive in downtown Macon, go to the big house and visit the Allman Brothers Museum, have lunch at Piedmont Brewery, and maybe spend the night, depending on your schedule. Then get up and go to Andersonville and Jimmy Carter's museum there in Plains and come back home. So the second trip I did a little bit longer. It's a 2 to 4 day trip, again, depending on how far you want to drive, but you could drive up to Atlanta and make sure you go when it's not rush hour traffic, which is really all the time now. But you could start at downtown, which is where Martin Luther King Jr. Park is. The Kennesaw Mountain Battlefield is just northwest of Atlanta on your way up towards Chattanooga. You'll see the Chickamauga and Chattanooga Military Park before you get to the Tennessee line. And then, of course, Chattanooga. And, you know, besides just going up to Lookout Mountain and the battlefields, the Incline Railway is there. Of course, we all see signs that say Rock City and Ruby Falls. I don't do Ruby Falls anymore as I've gotten older, but as a kid, it was fun. So maybe that's something if you have grandchildren. So the Emoji Mounds, for those that haven't been to Macon, I found this very interesting park. So think about 17,000 years of continuous human habitation. It's a really long time. So pre-90s, 9,600 BCE, which means before the Common Era, crossed the continent during the last ice age. So skip forward to the early Mississippian, which is 900 to 1200. These people made pottery, baskets, fabrics, and built flat top mounds, burials, and earth lodges here to suggest that they had, you know, rituals and social relationships. Whoops, sorry. So in 1540, the Spanish arrived. They brought conflict and disease while engaging with the trade. Within 100 years, little remained of the Mississippian culture there. So in 1690, the Muskogee people built a large town on the Smoky River, which runs just right by these mounds, and took advantage of commerce with British trading posts. They abandoned it after colonists defeated them in the Yamasee War. The Muskogee Nation considers this land their ancestral homeland and site of their first permanent settlement. So again, this is, you can walk, you know, 3 miles or just up to the mound and rest. They have benches and turn around and come back. So this is one of the Earth Lodge. So it's a reconstructed council chamber of the Mississippian culture. The walls and ceiling were reconstructed late in 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCCs. The clay floor within the building is the original floor built by the native people, and it's dated to 1015. So there's again another picture of the Temple Mound. So over 100 burials have been discovered here. Some had copper and shell ornaments suggesting high social status. And in 1870, the railroad cut removed a large portion of the funeral mound. So I put this in here because I saw it online. If anybody's interested, they're having a 30th annual Indian celebration in September. So that might be something fun to go to. On this particular bit of information I found very interesting to me. This was the largest dig ever conducted in the United States. I never knew that. I mean, we're talking 3 hours from here in Macon. Between 1933 and 1936, over 800 men in Roosevelt's work, which was the WPA, the CWA, ERAFA, and the CCCs evacuated this site. And a lot of the artifacts that they took from this site are in the visitor center there. So you can see those when you go. So now talk a little bit about Florida. So again, these are the park system sites in Florida, starting kind of in the northern area and going all the way to the southern portion of Florida. So there's quite a few in Florida you can see within a short distance. So consider maybe a trip to St. Augustine for those maybe that haven't been here. My cousin and I went last September and I had never been to Daytona, Jacksonville, just never took time to check out St. Augustine. But it's about a 3 to 4 hour drive. There are many sites to see in addition to Castillo de Marcos and Fort Matasas. I went in September. Of course, it was pretty hot, but the crowds were not really that bad. I think October would have been better because it was pretty steamy at the fort. But again, you know, it's 210 miles depending on how you want to drive. It was founded in 1565. So the Castillo de San Marcos is varying Indian cultures that have left their mark on Florida history. So, you know, St. Augustine claims to be the oldest city in the United States. You know, we'll give it to them. I think some people that from Plymouth, Massachusetts wouldn't be real happy. So St. Augustine eventually became home to the first legally established free African settlement in North America. The National Park website has many stories also of women in history in St. Augustine. So when you go to St. Augustine, I just listed here, these were some of the things that we did when we went down there. And I've got some pictures and some I need some water, some information on that as well. So the fort, again, it was, it's called extinct, which is EXTANT, meaning it survived and is still in existence. So 55 years before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, the founder of St. Augustine celebrated a massive Thanksgiving and meal with local native tribes. That's why I don't think Plymouth people would be real happy to learn that. Maybe they know that, but anyway, it's a really neat fort, you know, if you're into the history and the military side of it, to go visit. The Hotel Alcazar, which is now the Lightner Museum, I found to be very beautiful and very interesting. So it was completed in 1888 by railroad magnate Henry Flagler. Otto Lightner Museum is now housed in the museum, which he founded in 1947. And it's right across the street from Flagler College, so you can go there. So I thought it was cool. I went online and found this picture of the swimming pool, which is in the middle of it, from 1889. And then the picture on the right I took, which there's no swimming pool. It's now a cafe and it's dry. So, and this is just Alvarez Street, which was very pretty, had some interesting sites, just a nice, you know, morning walk down this little street, but they do have a lot of art shops and things around in this area. That's really fun to visit if you're into art. I thought the tree that I had put on there on the right was interesting. So it's a tree with a palm tree growing in the middle. So it just kind of wrapped itself around. So as we get towards the end of the presentation, I wanted to talk about park passes. Does everybody in here have a park pass? Fair amount. So for you to go and visit all these beautiful sites around the United States, I would encourage you to get a park pass. So because it gives you a ticket to 2,000 federal recreational sites. If you have to be 62, so everybody in here is probably over 62. The website charges $10 processing fee, but I would just buy it at the park. So if you go to a park, you could buy your park pass there. The senior pass, an annual pass, is $20. Or you can go ahead and buy a lifetime pass, which is what I would do, for $80, which gets yourself and 3 adults into any facility at no charge. So, and it's a one-time fee, but just make sure you take it with you when you go, because I forgot and I had to pay another $20 to get into a fort. So now I carry it with me. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You live and learn, right? So I wanted to share this with you because I thought this was so cool. When I went on my road trip to South Dakota and across the West, one of my friends bought us these passports. Has anybody ever seen a passport for national parks? Great. I know, they're like so much fun. We were kind of like children with this passport, but it was the 100th year anniversary in 2016 of the park system. So we bought this, we had this passport, and every time you go to a visitor center, kind of like when you go to a country, they have a little desk set up there and stamps with the date on it, and you open your passport to that section of it and you stamp the date so you can remember when you were there. So I would suggest, you know, if it's husband and wife, you might just want one passport between you. But also think about if any of you have grandkids coming maybe for the summer and you want to go to a national park, this would be great fun for them as well, to get them each a passport book. And the best place is to buy them at the park because they're like over $20 on Amazon. And you can get them at the park system for $9.99. So it's pretty inexpensive. So, you know, like I said, you can plan your own trip. I'm more than happy to help any of you and answer questions as I can. If you want to visit a national park or plan a road trip, there's also some great trips out there. And, you know, we're putting more of those into the frequent flyer. So, you know, America Great National Parks, they have a lot of tour groups that go to different parks in the country. Vacations by rail, Gate One travel, and then excursions unlimited. So those are just some of them. There's a lot out there that offer you an opportunity to go with a tour group, which can be very nice because then you're not driving, because the driver invariably, you're the one that misses, you know, some of the sites because you're driving. I know when I went to the Grand Canyon, we took the Grand Canyon Railroad out of Williams, Arizona. So that was a great way to go see the Grand Canyon, is just hop on the train and go to the Grand Canyon, spend a couple of hours on the South Rim and then come back. So I wanted to put this in here because a lot of you do have grandkids and this would be fun for them if they come down to visit, is to get them involved in the Junior Ranger program. So they get badges and all kinds of cool stuff, and they got hats and vests, you know, at the national park visitor centers, and you can get them involved in it. And there's even online classes and things like that that kids can take for activities and get them involved and learning a little bit more on our national parks. So there are still some free, what they call free national park days. So if you don't have your national park pass, these are days coming up in 2022, which you can get into any of the national park system sites at no charge. And by the way, this presentation, I'm going to upload it to YouTube so you can go back and look at some of these dates and all that. But in reading about park system, and you know, last year because of COVID, a lot of people were visiting the national parks, and a lot of them, they were overwhelmed, especially Yellowstone and some of them. And so they're actually going to be taking reservations for some of the parks this year. So these are the ones that I read, which are some, you know, that are pretty popular. So just be aware that when you go to the website, make sure you check the data on the park that you want to go to, just to see if there's any timed entries, because you'd hate to get there and find out you can't get in. And that's it for the presentation. And certainly if you have any questions, hang around after the meeting. I'll be glad to help you. I do have a road atlas I brought just as an FYI. I found this last year, which gives you the national parks in there already. It doesn't give you national sites, but it does give you parks. And then on part of the raffle, I brought a passport here. So hopefully some lucky person that doesn't have one would win. So it'll get you started. And when you get your passport, you'll find it's got a great map that comes in it. And you also get a little hanger to put send your pass in, and you put this on your mirror in your car. And then that way you can just go around through the parks. Thank you. Yes.
So as far as the reconstruction era, national park in Beaufort, I'm Debbie Height, and on November 16th, I led a group from Migos on a excursion through Beaufort, especially, I don't need the microphone.
Oh, yes, I forgot about you Zoom people, sorry. So if you go to the WeGo's, the Facebook page, there are some pictures posted there from that excursion from November 16th. And I've been asked to do that again. So let's see, what is this, February now? Maybe in a couple months, I'll, because I've had people reach out to me to want to go. So I'll probably offer that again.
Perfect. That'd be
Okay,
great. Thank
sure.
you. Any other questions?
Other questions for Diane?
Okay.
Yes, Chris went over here.
Oh, yes.
So in Atlanta, visitors center open, I was there last June and it wasn't.
You know what? I did not check it before I came today. I would suspect it's probably open. But I'll be glad to look at it or just, Google it. That's usually what I do and see if they're open now. Because a lot of places were closed last year. And I think they're still requiring masks inside.
I just want to make a comment. Macon, Georgia actually also is famous for their cherry blossom trees.
Yes.
Which are the same trees that are in Washington. And you have to capture it the moment they open, they're white. And then they turn pink. But it was interesting to see them in Macon. There's a lot of historical sites in Macon itself.
Yeah, she's talking about the cherry blossoms, which that's in the frequent flyer, because Excursions Unlimited has a trip there too. And I don't remember the count, but they actually have more cherry trees in Macon than they do Washington DC. So, and I think the trip on excursions like March 25th maybe, but again, you're just gonna have to watch and see when they're ready and blooming.
Well, thank you so much, Diane, for sharing all this information about our national parks that are somewhat nearby, and we can go visit them. So I do have a few announcements before we do our drawing. You guys are seeing me again today because Ed is on a cruise. So we do have the club does have another president, but I'm in this role today as past president.
And Elizabeth isn't here.
What?
Elizabeth has jury duty.
Yes, Elizabeth Brennan was gonna be the president today and preside over the meeting, but she called me last night and she said, Sherry, I got chosen for jury duty in Ridgeland today. And so she was quite distraught that she was gonna have to be there instead of here. So anyway, does everyone have a ticket for the drawing? Okay. Anyone need a ticket? Still, okay, Bernie, there's one lady up here who needs a ticket and a couple in the back over here. So just keep your hands up and Bernie will bring you a ticket. Okay, and while she's doing that, I'm going to make a couple of other announcements. There were three over on the right side. Okay, our next general membership meeting takes place here on March 8th at 2 o'clock. Mary Helen and Noah Rosenstein will present highlights on their November 2021 trip to Greece. Their trip started with 4 days in Athens prior to boarding the Viking Venus for an ocean cruise to 7 other ports, including Kusadasi, Turkey, and they visited Greek, Roman, Minoan, and Mycenaean ruins. Sorry, I think I just murdered the pronunciation of that. And so we will look forward to seeing them at our March meeting. And we will also do that meeting on Zoom. So for those of you who are on Zoom today, if you wish to join us on Zoom, then that would be fine. We are continuing to monitor this virus, and hopefully there won't be another variant that does what the Omicron variant did in January and force us to cancel our meeting. But anyway, we are still doing that. So does everyone now have a ticket? Okay, yes. Okay, so I think we're ready for our drawing. And so we have the passport. And we've got 3 gift cards, correct, Bernie?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay, so, well, Diane, as our speaker, would you like to? Sure. Okay, the numbers,
That's actually somebody, Marianne Loveridge.
yes, Mary Ann, are you logged in? Let me stop the share here.
Marianne is, I'm here. I'm her husband. Marianne is in the bathroom.
Okay. Okay, she is permitted.
So I'll make sure that.
Okay, well, we will bring the passport to the National Park Spy after the meeting today, and we have your address. Okay, so Bernie, you want to draw the next one? Okay, the numbers on this one, someone in the room. It is 222415.
Right in the front.
Oh, okay.
Mona.
Okay, Jody, would you like to draw for the next one?
No, I had to talk to them. I said you were in the bathroom. They were all laughing.
This is a Zoom person. It is John Stewart. So is John present on Zoom? John, please unmute yourself and speak if you're there. I was gonna just look. I'm having trouble, Diane. You wanna look? I've only got one hand. Do you wanna scan down through the names over there and see if he's there? Is it not? Where's the mouse? We've lost the mouse. Oh, there it moved.
Oops. Oh, no. What is going on?
Okay,
Let's
is
just
it-
get out of this.
Okay,
There.
okay.
Who am I looking for again?
John Stewart.
There's a John. There's a John. Doesn't have a last name.
Is John Stewart, are you on Zoom? Not hearing anything. Let's go ahead and draw another name.
Sorry, John.
This is a person in the room. And the numbers are 222455. Okay, right there. So Bernie will come back. Yeah. So Diane's gonna do the last one.
Oh, another one on.
Oh, we have another one on Zoom. Donna Cleveland. Is Donna present?
I'm here.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're here in the room?
No, I'm on Zoom.
Cleveland. Yes, so she said she is here, so,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
on-
okay, Donna, we will bring which one? We have a Home Depot gift card for you, so Bernie will
That's super.
bring that by after our meeting. So that's all of our gift cards today, and so we thank you so much for coming to the meeting, and we thank those of you who have joined us on Zoom, and we look forward to seeing everyone next month at our meeting on March 8th. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Hi, your parents applied for the Loveridge's live, and I would take the passport that she won.
Hi, Bernie. Where did she go?
What's that?
The passport?
Yeah.
That's
my neighbor.
Just one sec.
No, that'll be great. I was gonna run by here. Oh, you did? Oh,